This is Minding the Forest, a podcast of the Louisiana Forestry Association. Hello, I'm your host, Jeff Zeringue, media specialist for the LFA. In Minding the Forest, we talk about all things forestry. Forest landowners, loggers, and wood manufacturers, such as lumber, paper, and pellet mills, all play an important role in the conservation and management of forests for the important natural resource it is. Managed forests offer more for wildlife and water protection, so the LFA advocates to keep forests as forests. This episode of Minding the Forest is sponsored by First South Farm Credit. First South is your premier rural lender. With over 100 years financing timber and agriculture, they have the expertise you're looking for when financing rural property. If you're looking to purchase or refinance land, call your local First South Farm Credit office or find them online at firstsouthland.com. We have with us Betty Kaufman. Betty is from the Monroe area, and she is the president of the statewide association, Louisiana Master Naturalists Association.
That is correct. Yes.
Betty, welcome. Glad to have you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Tell us a little bit about where you're from and your background.
Well, I am originally from Iowa. Grew up in rural Iowa, small town Iowa. Came to Pennsylvania first to get my graduate degrees, and then at some point in my career was looking for a job, and got my PhD in communication in Pennsylvania at Penn State University, and then came to work in Monroe, Louisiana, to be a department head at what was then Northeast Louisiana College, Northeast Louisiana University. There it was. It's changed names a few times. So I came to the South for a job. And I've been in Monroe now for 20-some years, worked at the university for 20 years and retired from there. And my field is communication. I was a department head for about half of that time and then went back to teaching full-time. And my field was actually mass communication. So I've actually done some broadcasting, a little bit of broadcasting.
So the microphone really doesn't bother you at all?
No.
Excellent.
I love a microphone. They really, really help with clarity and
So how did you get involved with the Louisiana Master Naturalists?
Interesting, and kind of I'll try to give you a slightly briefer version of it, but I first got interested a number of years ago in native plants because I grew up in southeastern Iowa. I went to Pennsylvania and I lived there for a long time while I got my graduate degrees and taught. And then I came to the South. And of course, one of the things that is striking is that the plant life is very different. Not quite sure where my interest in plants came from, but I first got involved in the Louisiana Native Plant Society and was really fascinated with that. And, Charles Allen, who's a retired botanist who lives in the southwest corner of the state, kind of became my mentor, and I've learned a lot from him over the years. And at some point, I was like, that's not enough. I was still teaching full-time, and I heard about a program called Master Naturalists. So I went online and looked, and I found the statewide association's website. And at that point in time, I think there were only 2 or 3 chapters in the more populous areas of the state. But I contacted the president, who was Bob Thomas from Loyola down in New Orleans. And he said, well, why don't you start a chapter in the northeast corner of the state? And I'm like, I'm teaching full. I don't have time. And he said, well, come on the board as a interested party, and when you retire, maybe you can. And I thought, well, that's a good idea. So I did that. So I was on the board for several years, and then I did retire in 2017. And the first thing I did was start forming a chapter in the Northeast. And I've truly been bitten by the bug. I have been a kind of a wannabe biologist all of my life, but I went into communication because I was afraid of the math and science. So. Anyway, I have now sort of realized that dream as becoming a master naturalist. We study. That's what we do, and I love it. I absolutely love it. So I've kind of lived that out in my retirement.
So the naturalist program, certainly plant life, and from our standpoint, trees are certainly the
absolutely, yes,
biggest interest.
Yes.
And so tell us a little bit about how trees fit into the naturalist program.
We do certification. We have a certification program. All of the chapters around the state have their own certification program, and we try to produce well-rounded people. And so we study a little bit of everything. We're kind of like the paradigm of knowing a lot about a little, or a little about a lot. So we always, I mean, every certification program has to have something on plant life, and that is going to include trees. And I'm actually thinking, we're thinking about workshops that we want to do in the northeast corner of the state. I'd love to do a forestry workshop because I have increasingly, as I've read, I mean, I brought some of my favorite books with me because the forest is not just a bunch of trees. I mean, it's not just a bunch of trees. Yeah. It's an organism in and of itself, and the complexity of how forests work. So that's part of, that would be a sort of a specialized thing that people go into, but we're going to introduce all certified master naturalists into plant life in general, and certainly the role of forests and trees in the biosphere. So that's going to be part of our training always.
Okay. Yeah, they're unique ecosystems.
Absolutely.
That help support a lot of wildlife, and
absolutely
it does a lot
and
of
plant life. Listen, I mean, that's, and of course, the longleaf pine is just, this is one of the most powerful stories that I've ever learned, and I've really pursued understanding that better. But there's a whole, not just plant life, but animals, critters that lived in the longleaf forest, and that the destruction of the longleaf forest really changed the whole system. I mean, it just changed the whole system. So yes, they're not just trees, they're whole entire, not just plant critters, but plant life that grows with different trees or in different kinds of forests. So they're wildly different. Learning to look at a forest and say, oh, this is a bottomland hardwood, or this is an upland pine, or this is a longleaf savanna. This is just a wondrous thing to me. I never growing up thought of it that way.
Iowa is not a place you would think of right off the bat when you think of forests.
That's true. And I would say that because of Iowa's prime agricultural country, and so is Louisiana to some extent, but Iowa has this rich topsoil everywhere. So what you have in Iowa is, we call them timbers. Fence rows and timbers, and along rivers and streams and creeks and so forth. There's lots of forest, but there are not the acres and acres and acres of uninterrupted forest. But it's pretty there. Yeah, I mean, there are timbers. There's woodlands everywhere, but they're, I would say, more broken up into smaller pieces.
In Pennsylvania, more hardwood up there, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think so. And this is. But while I was in Pennsylvania, I was busy being a professor, and I didn't get that. It was really when I came to Louisiana that I started getting deeply interested in not just the plant life, but everything else that's out there. It's so unique. It's so different here.
There is a natural curiosity that we all have.
Yes.
And so what was the uniqueness about Louisiana when you moved here that got you interested in the Master Naturalist program, and specifically to trees?
In Pennsylvania, my late husband and I lived on the side of a mountain ridge. And walking up the mountain into the woods to go hunting, we were deer hunters. I grew up in a hunting family. I don't do it anymore because I hunt with my camera now, but I did. And I grew up in a hunting family. And so my late husband and I, it was like walking into a cathedral. And I came to Louisiana, and the first forays I made into the woods were like, I was horrified. I could not see the beauty. It was like spiky stuff everywhere, and snake, I was sure that there was a snake under every palmetto. And, I had heard, first of all, some horror stories about, one of the stories I heard before I came to Louisiana is that there's a water moccasin in every pond or puddle, which is not true, just not true. But anyway, so coming to Louisiana from that place in Pennsylvania where the woods was like a cathedral, and Louisiana is vines and palmettos and thick undercover and all of it. And it was hard. I really had to go out, and then the swamp was even worse. Gators that can, it seemed strange and scary. I've grown to love it and to appreciate it, but that is really understanding this and knowing where I was certainly part of it for me. Yeah.
I think locals have a bit of, I don't know if I would call it entertainment, but certainly to pick on folks who come here from a different region.
Oh, yes.
And tell the horror stories. I lived for a very short time in Illinois,
Mm-hmm.
loved it up there. But the stories I heard as a non-native of Illinois were these great big snow drifts and
Yes, yes, yes,
ponds that freeze
yes.
over, and
Of course.
from my South Louisiana upbringing, that was
That was,
just so foreign
yes, yes.
and strange. So I imagine you had the same
That
thing
so I
coming
had the
down
same
here.
thing coming south. It was all very foreign and very strange and just and I really I don't know. I'm glad I didn't give up on getting integrated and understanding it and appreciating it because what a wonderful thing it is. It's just an amazing thing. But coming from first Iowa, where I was born and raised, and then Pennsylvania, I lived most of my life before I came to Louisiana within 30 miles of Interstate 80. So
Wow.
both at both ends. And so coming here was just, yes, it was a different world. And at first it seemed strange and scary. But I've really come to love it and appreciate it and can't wait to get back out there again.
Is there a turning point in your experience that it went from being scary to being beautiful?
Fascinating and beautiful.
Fascinating, yeah.
Golly, that's an interesting question, and I really haven't thought about it. There have been turning points of a smaller nature, and I don't remember for sure. But maybe it was the night that my late husband and I were deer hunting, and he had no sense of direction. He was raised in a city. He had no sense of direction whatsoever. So I was always the guide. Well, we got out of our trees after dark, and I got us lost, and but we found we were fine. We were okay, but we got lost and thoroughly lost. The sun went down and I was not paying attention to the sun, and there we were. And so, but we walked out to a road and et cetera, got a ride back to our vehicles. We were fine. But that was both a humbling and a scary and a humbling, but also a moment of appreciation, I think, that yes, you can go get lost out there and you can find your way back out again. And it just sort of whetted my appetite for going back out again. So that was in the Tensod NWR that I got us totally lost. And we walked a long ways, but we walked out.
Well, good. I'm glad you made it, and it wouldn't be otherwise.
And I don't know if that was kind of, I think that was kind of a turning point of just saying, okay, go back in again.
Got to get back on the bike.
Right. Getting you back on the bike. Yeah.
You certainly are a learned woman, and academia isn't the only interest that you have.
Right.
Certainly you
Absolutely.
love to learn. Obviously,
Yes.
you're
Yes.
in a position
Yes.
with the Master Naturalists to be constantly learning.
Our chapters range from Greater New Orleans, which has graduated several hundred Master Naturalists. My little chapter up in the northeast corner of the state, I think we have a total of 7 Master Naturalists, certified Master. But we continue to offer workshops, and I've repeated every one. I mean, I've had some of our workshops 3 times now, and I'm like, I can't wait to go again. John Carr is up in my corner of the state. He's a herpetologist, and I've been through his workshop now several times, and I always learn something new. There's always something new to be learned, especially if you're open to and eager to find out more. So, yeah, I'm kind of insatiable when it comes to this kind of stuff.
So tell us a little bit about how, if someone has an interest
Yes.
in the Naturalist program, tell us, how do they get involved? How do they even
Sure.
know where to go?
Sure. Well, the first thing I would suggest is that we now have. When I first started, we did not. We only had chapters in the major cities. We now have chapters all over the state. The territories are kind of big, like the Northeast chapter, which is sort of headquartered in Monroe, covers, I think, a 13 parish area. The Northwest chapter, which is headquartered, of course, in Bossier and Shreveport, they have the whole northwest corner of the state. So our areas are large, but there is a chapter in every area. In the center of the state, we have Cenla chapter. And in the south part of the state, we have Southwest chapter Acadiana at Lafayette, Greater Baton Rouge, and Greater New Orleans. So we have a total of 7 chapters. So wherever you are in this state, if you want to get connected, you can. You might have to drive a bit. One of our members lives way up in the really northeast corner of the state, and she drives a lot to get to our meetings and so forth. But we try to go around. We don't just meet in the middle always. So you can go online. Just go Google Louisiana Master Naturalist Association. We have a statewide website, and there are links and contact information for every chapter on that website. So if you want to find out who in your local area, in your area of the state where we have a chapter, 7 chapters, go online. Go to Louisiana Master Naturalist Association, LMNA for short. Find our website and look for the chapter information there, and it will get you to somebody in your corner or your portion of the state.
Do we have master naturalists all over the state?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Even in every parish, maybe?
I don't know about every parish because, see, in my corner, the Northeast chapter, we're small, and most of our certified master naturalists are, well, let's see, we have several of us live in Ouachita Parish, but we have one who lives way up in where does she? Round Lake Providence area, and we have but we don't have someone from every parish in our corner of the state. We're just small and still, and we're the newest chapter. We're the newest chapter.
Oh, okay.
All the other chapters are now a little bit older than we are. So I don't think we could say that. But we have hundreds of master naturalists across the state. The point of it being education for conservation and for treasuring and caring for planet Earth, and sharing what we know. That is the two things. First, we need to know something, and secondly, we need to share what we know. So all master naturalist chapters require both education, continuing education, and service. And so we do a variety of outreach things to share what we know with the general population, because the more people know and understand and appreciate the natural world, the better care they're going to take of it. That's the objective. That's what our mission statement on our website is, to create a network of people who know and understand enough about the environment to care about it and to protect it, take action to protect it, and to share their knowledge with other people. That's what we're really about.
The conservation ideals that the Master Naturalist program seems to coincide with managed forests,
yes,
as we know it.
Yes, absolutely. We are conservationists in the sense that we're not, some environmental groups believe that the only proper thing is to leave it alone, and we don't. We think that humans belong in the forest. We belong in the forest. We're part of it, and that we belong, and that we are part of, and akin to, and that there are. So we want to get people out there in it. We don't want people to stand off and say, "Oh, I can't go out there because I'm going to leave a footprint." It's all about sustainability and conservation and promoting diversity, biodiversity. And humans, we're too many of us now to leave it alone. We've got to manage. We've got to manage our presence and our interactions with the environment entirely, because we can't. We're too many to leave it alone.
Curious thing is, how can you have an interest or really have a desire to protect something that you
have no familiarity with?
Exactly.
That you don't go out into. Listen, you know what my biggest fear is? One day I'm going to be too old to go out into the woods, and I'm going to curl up and die, I'm sure. So I'm worried, I'm talking to my master naturalists. We need to develop a program of outreach to the elderly. Anybody who's mobile enough yet to use a walker, we need to take them into the woods. We need to take them out into the woods, because it's better. They're going to be healthier mentally and emotionally and physically if they get out there into the woods than they are if they just sit in their nursing homes and et cetera. So that's my big preventive thing for me, is making sure there's somebody who will take me for a walk in the woods when I'm too old to go by myself.
And there are very many opportunities, especially
Yes.
with state and federally owned properties that do have. And
Right.
of course, we have Kisatchie National Forest in several parishes around north and west central Louisiana.
And it is possible to find where there are paths that are wide enough and gentle enough that you can take elderly people. Absolutely.
I think there are many private landowners as well, forest landowners who would be more
Yes.
than willing to work with,
Work with us.
programs
Yes,
to get
yes.
people out there.
And the state park system, by the way, has some also great places to take people. But yes, I helped. Are you familiar with Camp Hardner, which is up by Pollock, Louisiana?
Yes, ma'am.
All righty. Yes, you should be. Hardner himself was the
founding father of
father
modern
of
forestry.
reforestation. Yes, absolutely. And I'm an Episcopalian, and we have Camp Hardner because he gave part of his land that he planted trees on it and gave it to the church, and so that's why we have it today. But I was part of worked with Camp Hardner to get them into the Louisiana State Heritage Program. Can't think what it's called right now, but anyway, there is a program that works with private landowners that want to conserve their land, and so we put Camp Hardner into that system. So yes, that is a wonderful resource. Absolutely.
With all the articles in recent years about forest bathing and things of that nature, it is healthier for folks to
No
be
question.
immersed in nature, and
is
forests
very
are
simple.
an excellent way to do that.
We, in my chapter, some of the chapters, we all require a series of workshops to become certified. Some of the chapters give a test. My chapter requires a project, so an interpretive project. And one of the first ones that got done was a young woman who did her research on the research on the health effects of being in nature. And so we still publish this today. I didn't think of bringing one with me, but it's called Healing Nature, and it is a summary of her research that she did for her project. And there's a lot of research out there that shows that it is just healthy for human beings to be out with nature. Absolutely.
And in Louisiana, we're very fortunate. We have millions of acres
Millions
of
of
forest,
acres.
and
Yes.
it's a
Some
great
of it a
opportunity.
little harder to get into. The swamp is a little harder to negotiate when you're not very mobile, but
That's true.
there are plenty of places where people can go. Absolutely.
Plenty of solid ground out there.
Absolutely. Lots of solid ground. Yeah.
What is your hope for the future of the Master Naturalists Association?
We need to continue to grow. Some of our territories are really, really big. I hope in the future. I don't think that's going to happen under my tenure as president. I've got about a year to go. But in the future, I would love to see more chapters with smaller territories to cover. It is hard to sustain a chapter when there's not a huge population. But people, whether they want to become certified master naturalists or not, getting involved with a group of people who is focused on learning more, that's good for everybody. And so I really would like to see more people get involved with master naturalists, even if they don't want to become certified master naturalists. You don't have to. But of course, I would like to see more certified master naturalists and a bigger network throughout the state, the more outreach we can do. I do some work with a scout troop. About once a year, I do something with a scout troop. So more people like me and the other certified master naturalists who are doing things with people in the community, it has to make a difference in the long run in our ability to appreciate and conserve and care for the planet.
And one more time, if someone is out there and they want to learn more, where do they go?
Go out, find Louisiana Master Naturalist Association website and look for the chapter information and find the chapter in your area, and there will be a person's name and a phone number and an email address. Get in touch with them.
Betty, thanks so much. Betty Kaufman, she is the president of the statewide Louisiana Master Naturalist Association. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you. Been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Mind of the Forest, a podcast of the Louisiana Forestry Association. This episode of Mind of the Forest was sponsored by First South Farm Credit. First South is your premier rural lender. With over 100 years financing timber and agriculture, they have the expertise you're looking for when financing rural property. If you're looking to purchase or refinance land, call your local First South Farm Credit office or find them online at firstsouthland.com. If you'd like to learn more about sustainable forestry, the LFA and its programs, or how you can be part of an organization that supports landowners, loggers, and wood manufacturers in the state, go to laforestry.com. You can also send comments or suggestions to me via email at jzeringue@laforestry.com. That's jzeringue at laforestry.com, or check out the show notes for our contact information. And remember, at the Louisiana Forestry Association, we're minding the forest for you.